everyone. Welcome back to the Undead Talk podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about The Walking Dead Season 3, Episodes 1 through 3. And of course, my dad is here to join me.
Hey, everybody.
We have made it to Season 3. It is hard to believe.
It's awesome, man. I'm loving watching this all again. It's great.
And I don't know how the math works 3 out of 11 and all of that, or 2 out of 11, and how far we are through. It's safe to say we still have a lot to go, though.
We sure do.
Um, But I would say these 3 episodes were a really strong start to season 3, and I noticed there was a lot more action in these 3 episodes, as opposed to season 2, which was very light on the action. It seems like they're setting up this season to be way more action packed. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And still maintaining like the focus on character development. I think the first 3 episodes really are setting some things up good for the future, as
Mm-hmm.
well as being very entertaining and action oriented.
Yeah, for sure. So, season 3, episode 1 is titled Seed, and it says, with the world growing more dangerous and Lori's pregnancy advancing, Rick searches for a safer home for the something group. I do not know what that word is. Do you know what this word is?
Beleaguered.
Beleaguered group. So yeah, we have a time jump of 8 months since the end of season 2. So Lori is 9 months pregnant. She can have the baby any day, and we discover that they have not found the prison that was nearby them at the end of season 2. And I thought that was kind of weird that, like, for some reason they never saw the prison in the 8 months that they were in that area. Or I guess they weren't in that area the whole time, but I just thought that was kind of surprising.
Yeah, they just kind of like went around it or went
Mhm.
the opposite direction. Yeah.
But they do find the prison, and they go and they take out a bunch of walkers. And there's multiple scenes where they're taking out the walkers. Again, this is a very action-packed premiere. Um, and kind of through it, we have like our new status quo in a sense, our new grouping. Um, I like that Carol and Daryl are kind of have like a better relationship going on. There's even some flirting there. What do
Right.
you think of
Right.
that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think when I take a look at the way the characters are working, after 8 months, there's a lot of teamwork. I mean, they've
Mhm.
progressed in the way to survive together as a group. The relationships are deeper, even though it seems, and we'll see this throughout these episodes, that Rick and Lori's relationship has gotten worse. But for the rest of the relationships, they think they've grown together
Mhm.
as a group.
Yeah, that's a good point. That they are really their marriage and that family unit between the three of them is kind of the exception to the overall bonding of the group.
Yep.
And everyone is growing closer. It seems like they're in a way better place. And maybe part of that is because Shane and Andrea are both gone, who were like the conflicting parts of the group. And now everyone's kind of on the same side in a sense, except for Rick and Lori, obviously.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that they've had to survive some very bleak situations. I mean, it looks like they've had a very much a lack of food,
Hmm.
and from day to day, it's survival. And I think because of that, they've bonded. When you share in this kind of experiences of life and death on a daily basis, it really forms a very tight knit community.
Yeah, for sure. And it's nice to see that Daryl and Carol are in a better place in their
Oh yeah,
relationship,
for sure.
and that Carla has a little crush on Beth. I thought that was cute. And
Mm-hmm.
then Herschel's like, "What are you doing in here?"
Mm-hmm.
That was funny. But yeah, I noticed that the group dynamics are very special in these first 3 episodes. Well, mostly in the first two that focus on the prison.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I really like that. But yeah, we have Rick and Lori, and they're having some marital issues. Season 2 ended with things kind of in a bleak place for them, with Lori refusing to talk to Rick because that he and Carl killed Shane, and now Rick's upset with Lori, and we don't really know why. And even at the end of episode 3, we still don't know why they're so cold to each other. Well, mostly Rick is cold to Lori. It seems like Lori is trying to make something work between them, but it seems like kind of all hope is lost. But what do you think of that?
Yeah, and I think it has everything to do with Shane, and I think it has everything to do with the seed that's growing within her. And I know that metaphor is multifaceted, but um, it started in a bad place, and every moment is a reminder of that. Every moment of the pregnancy is a reminder of that, and I think that's caused the relationship to fracture.
Hmm. Do you think that she told Rick that the baby is Shane's at some point, and that might be why?
I think there was an implication of that. I mean, I
Hmm.
think everybody knows, right?
Yeah,
It's
but
not a hidden thing.
yeah,
Timing makes it pretty clear that the
yeah.
baby was Shane's, and Rick knows it. So every
Hmm.
day he looks over at his wife, he's reminded of Shane. Yeah,
That she cheated on him,
yeah,
but especially Shane. Like he killed his best friend, and yet he lives on
hmm
and the baby, and
hmm
it's not his baby. He
right.
knows that, and that's why he's being so cold to her, and especially because I mean, Lori told him repeatedly that it was Rick's baby, and now that things have kind of slowed down a bit. He's fully realized that's not my baby,
hmm
and how am I supposed to parent that child?
Correct.
So it's a very complicated situation for Rick. But so we jump gears over to Michonne, our new character, and I liked her in these episodes. I thought she's a very interesting character and has a lot of good qualities about her, and I like how protective she is of Andrea. What do you
hmm
think of her?
Yeah, I think she is a quiet leader,
Hmm.
and she's a force to be reckoned with.
Hmm.
The way she uses a sword, the way she used the two walkers, pets. I think you wrote down
Hmm.
somewhere. I think she is, and we'll see this. She doesn't talk too much,
Hmm.
but she is tremendously wise. Maybe that has to do with the survival that she had to go through before we connected into her story. But yeah, I really like Michonne.
Yeah, I do too. And yeah, she's caring for Andrea, who's really sick.
Yeah, she must have like pneumonia or something. I mean,
Hmm.
she's really sick, and she's went, and we see this in episode one where she goes out and finds antibiotics or aspirin, wasn't it?
Aspirin, yeah.
Yeah, just something to help. She's looking.
But I wonder what went down with them in the 8 months because Andrea said maybe in episode 3 that like you barely like shared stuff about you in the 8 months that we've been together.
Yep.
And but like what happened with Andrea in particular in those 8 months, I'm interested in.
Yep.
Has she been sick this whole time? I'm gonna assume not, but it's possible that like she just deteriorated. And 8 months is a decent time jump when you think about it.
I
That's
think
like,
so, and I think it's interesting that in the survival of the two groups, basically, I'm saying in the
mhm.
main group and Michonne and Andrea, that they didn't intersect over those 8 months, which is interesting.
No, they did not.
But I guess you look at it from a territory standpoint, they could be just moving in opposite
Hmm.
directions and trying to hide out from
Hmm.
walkers. So,
I'm gonna assume they're gonna have to intersect at some point.
well, of course, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. Um, so let's see. So we have they're kind of exploring the prison, and we see Herschel gets bit on the leg by a walker, and that was pretty shocking to me. I'm like, for the first episode, that was a pretty big thing to happen, and the episode ends. They have to amputate Herschel's leg and saw it off, and that was very shocking. And then we find out that there's prisoners in the prison. So that was like a pretty like shocking like sequence. Like again, this first episode was very action packed, and that's what I liked about it. But what did you think of kind of that whole ending sequence of stuff with Herschel and then the prisoner reveal?
So I think if you look at the episode as a whole, this idea of seed, there's this opportunity for rebirth, and there's hope in the prison. Like we found the place. This is going to be new. So everybody gets a second chance, and it's almost like it's just another set of challenges, one after another. Clearing, the prison yard, clearing the first cell block, and it's obstacle after obstacle. Even though they found this wonderful location, nothing's changed. They're still fighting. They're still surviving, and we see that with the Herschel situation. and there's new challenges in the sense of, we have a new group of people that we're interacting, and so everything's kind of circular. It's going, around again. In last season it was Herschel's farm, new opportunity, and then they had the new challenges over and over again, new people, Randall, all these things over and over again. And I think that there's this idea of hope, but then the obstacles hit. And I thought it was a pretty amazing conclusion for the first episode. I
Hmm.
really enjoyed the way they brought, these new characters in at the end of the episode, just standing there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was pretty
What
cool.
I did not expect was the, what happened with them in episode two. There was a lot of stuff with the prisoners in episode two. But before we get to there, I would give episode one like a 9 out of 10. I thought it was a very strong
Yeah, I'd say
premiere.
I'd say 9.5. And I love the time jump. I think that was a smart move,
Hmm.
and it set up this new season right before the birth of the baby,
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
it was good. We didn't have to like wait till the end of the season for the baby to come.
Hmm.
It's gonna happen probably not. I mean, it hasn't happened in these first three, but I'm assuming it's coming up pretty quick after this.
And
So
let me just add before we jump to the next episode, Rick's leadership is again continuing to he's strengthening as a leader. He's making good decisions,
yeah,
uh, even though his personal relationship with his wife is growing cold. He's growing as a leader, not
yeah.
making all the right decisions, but he's maturing as a
I
leader.
think he's regained trust in the group though in the 8 months
Hmm.
that have passed because season two ended with things in a pretty bleak place with him as the leader, and that no one was really trusting him, and now people seem to be trusting him. So something happened in those
Hmm.
8 months for
Hmm.
sure.
Yep.
He grew as a leader. So yeah, let's talk about episode two, which is called Sick, and it says the shocking discovery of new foes further complicates matters as Rick and the group fight to save the life of one of their own. And this was a great episode. It is solely focused in the prison, so there's no Andrea and Michonne stuff in this episode. Um, but we start off with the prisoners, and we find out that their names are Thomas, Andrew, Big, Tiny, Axel, and Oscar. And there is immediate conflict between Rick's group and their group as to who should get the rights to the prison, because the prisoners, have been there longer, obviously, but Rick they took out all those walkers, so they think that the prison should be theirs. So, what do you think of like this immediate conflict between them?
Yeah, and again, the conflict is it's secular. I mean, it's one after another, and this group, because the world has changed, because maybe the nature of the past eight, well, probably 9, 10 months, the prisoners had to deal with survival inside this one cell block. I think the freedom that they experienced when the group set them free from the prison created tension of territory, and Rick's not having it, not at all.
No.
But the interesting thing is the negotiation that Rick had. It was fair. Like, here, you guys can leave, or we'll clear out another cell block if you give us half the food. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we'll do the legwork with you. You can have your space, we can have our space, with just half the food. And they see the food, and the food is an enormous amount of food compared to what they've had over the last
Mm-hmm.
8 months. And so everything seems to be fair. As far as
Mm-hmm.
my outside view in, it looked fair. What did you think?
I think so. I thought that was a fair deal of Rick to come up with. I thought that was a good leadership decision of him. Um, but Rick doesn't trust the prisoners, even with this deal. He is even considering killing them. He tells Lori, and Lori says, "I support your decision." And Rick's like, "You say that now, but dot dot dot."
And that's a callback
Yeah,
to the decisions that he had to make with Shane.
yeah, and like he really doesn't like Lori's thoughts on his decisions. Like he doesn't really care much about them anymore. Like
No,
he's not going to listen to her what she thinks. He's just going to do his own thing,
right.
which just shows how their relationship has deteriorated.
Hmm.
Um, they're not really listening to each other. There's
No,
just there's really just no chemistry there anymore.
no.
Whatever chemistry might have been there, it hasn't been there for a while.
I don't think it's really been there. I mean, in what we've ever seen.
I mean, maybe I think in some
when they
parts
saw
of
each
season
other.
one,
Yeah.
but beyond that, I think it's kind of grown. Like I saw more of a connection with Shane and Andrea by far than Rick and Lori, like
Yes.
romantic and just friendship. So, but Herschel is down, and he's kind like they don't know if he's going to survive. And there were some nice moments with the Green family that I liked with Maggie and Beth, and then of course Herschel. And I'm liking that we're getting to see more of that family dynamic because I think it's a very interesting dynamic, and I like seeing more Maggie's vulnerable side and seeing Glenn being there for her. And I'm liking Beth as a character too. Kind of it seems like she's. I mean, it's been 8 months since she contemplated suicide, but now she's kind of starting to become a member of the group.
Yeah, she's found her purpose.
Hmm.
Yeah, she's definitely found her space. And yeah, I agree. I mean, there's uh, life and death here going on with Herschel,
Hmm.
and Maggie and Beth are dealing with the potential death
Hmm.
of Herschel in different ways. Maggie's like saying goodbye,
Hmm.
right? Like she's like, "It's okay, you can go," and Beth is have holding on to hope, and Glenn's just trying to be present, in the midst of it. So I think it's interesting to see that vulnerability. It's interesting to see the way the potential of grief there, the way they're handling it and stuff. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yep. So Carol, she wants to perform a practice C-section on a walker in case Herschel can't deliver Lori's baby. This was just a small plot, but the only two things I took away from this is that Carol is like stepping in as like a potential leader for the group, is what I'm seeing, and I like that. And it seems she's in a way better place now than she was in season two.
Yeah, she's growing definitely
Yeah.
as a leader, as a contributor to the group. She's thinking ahead, taking that decision on her own. But we also see, as she's doing the C-section, we see that somebody's watching
Yeah,
her.
that was my second point, and we don't know who's watching her, but kind of after watching episode three, I kind of have an idea who it might be, but I don't know if we'll ever find that out. But that was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So back to the prisoner stuff. So one of them named Big Tiny. He's not tiny. He's big. I thought that was just a funny name though. But
Mm-hmm.
he's the first one to die, and Thomas attacks him, and like he's really brutal. Um, so, but then we also have Rick telling Thomas to like open one door to let the walkers out so they can attack, and Thomas opens both doors, which really upsets Rick. And they take the walkers out, and then Rick kills him.
Well, and there's something else in there too. Thomas threw a walker onto Rick,
Hmm.
attempting pretty much for Rick to get killed here.
Yeah,
And so Thomas is, he's an evil dude.
like
Um,
Dave and Tony from the
yeah,
bar.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Again, everyone handles this kind of stuff differently,
Hmm.
and we see characters that kind of go crazy. Survival of the fittest. And Thomas thinks Rick is a threat, and Thomas is going to take out Rick so he can have everything himself.
Hmm.
Standard narcissist,
Yeah, I thought
personality
that. Yeah.
disorder. And Thomas, gets killed.
Yep.
And Rick needed to do that. But again, from a moral, ethical standpoint, this is hard stuff.
Hmm.
I have no idea what I would do in that situation. It's almost like you want to cheer Rick for killing Thomas. But again, we're talking about humanity. Can a human being who goes down the dark side, like Shane, can they be redeemed? So far, we're seeing not really. Maybe that sets us up for something in the future where we do see somebody who goes down the dark side actually come back around. I mean, that's what you're rooting for, right? But in Thomas's case, not no, didn't work out.
Well, last season there was the whole thing about Randall, and like they were considering killing him. Except Randall wasn't a bad guy. That was evident. He may have been just in the wrong group. Here, Thomas is a bad guy, and I think there is a difference in how whether he deserved to be killed or not. He couldn't like stay. He couldn't continue to be in that environment. Rick and the others couldn't be in that environment with Thomas as trying to be leader.
Well, and Thomas wasn't good to his he killed Tiny.
Yeah.
He wasn't good for his own group.
Right.
So Rick didn't have a choice, even looking out for some of the other characters, the other prisoners. He had to do that,
Mm-hmm.
or at least um, you know, lock him up somewhere or something. But he made the decision to kill him. Again, right, wrong, hard decisions here.
Hmm. And Andrew tries to attack Rick, but Rick leaves him out in a courtyard filled with walkers.
Yeah,
So we have three prisoners die in this episode, which I was not expecting. I thought these were going to be regular characters, but no, I was not expecting three of them to die in
yeah,
this.
and so we have two that are involved, right?
Yeah, we have Axel and Oscar are still.
Which one's which?
Axel was the longer hair white dude, and Oscar was one of the black
Okay,
dudes.
gotcha.
So I assume they're going to have some sort of role in it. So it's cool. Like maybe they'll be redeemed or whatever. We'll see. Um, but Herschel does survive, and Laurie's actually the one to save him, which was a good moment for her character. Um, so I figured Herschel would survive. I'm like, there's no way they would kill him in the second episode of the season. He's just too big of a character for that. But I was still happy that he survived. And yeah, what do you think of Laurie saving him?
Yeah, great for Lori. Rick didn't seem all that appreciative. I don't know what that was about. I thought it was interesting when Herschel woke up, who he wanted. He reached his hand out to Rick and not his daughters. Maybe that was just coming out of it, the trauma of it all. But the other thing that was interesting was that, uh, you know, Herschel thought enough of Rick as the leader to want to grasp Rick's hand. I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm, for sure. But yeah, Rick he does thank Laurie for saving Herschel, but like there's he doesn't have anything else to say to her. And then that little final shot is Laurie just by herself with the baby, or not with the baby, but like her and her
Ready
baby
to,
are alone.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, they're ready. She's ready to have the baby soon.
yeah, and she's all alone. I mean,
Mm.
and her son and her and Carl are having tension too.
Yes,
Um,
because Carl went off on his own and got meds.
yeah, and Laurie was not happy with that, and Carl talked back to Laurie, and so I just think I mean it seems like Carl and Rick have a good relationship, and not either of them with Laurie.
And Carl's becoming a mini Rick.
Yeah,
Walking around with the sheriff's hat and all that. He's a mini Rick.
and the gun. Yeah.
Yeah, yep.
Um, but yeah, I like this episode. I would probably give it like an 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree.
It was a good follow up. So let's move on to episode 3 called Walk With Me. And it says after witnessing an accident, Andrea and Michonne meet a new community of survivors who may not be as helpful as they seem. And this one is just focused on the Andrea and Michonne plotline. And my first thoughts were, I don't know how I feel about like this, just because it was a stark contrast from the prison. But after kind of thinking about it, I really enjoyed the episode. I thought it was a great setup for like the other world besides the prison, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it all goes down. But it starts off with the plane crash, and there's only one survivor, um, and Andrea and Michonne witness this, and we have this like group of people, and they're like observing the crash. And Michonne kills her walker pets, which was a pretty big moment that Andrea questions later on that like these were people like closest to her or like close to her, and she was willing to take them out. What did you think of
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Well, I mean, I thought the whole idea of okay, the helicopter,
Or the helicopter? Yeah.
soldiers. There's other groups of people out there, right? And tragedy happens for them too. I thought that was an interesting thing. And so this helicopter goes down, and everybody's drawn to the fire, right, or the smoke. And you see Michonne wants to check it out. She's looking for survivors. Um, they witness this interaction with this new group coming in. They see the governor, which we'll talk about in a second, and they're witnessing it. But her pets are, I'm thinking they're family members, but anyway, um, she's willing to uh, kill them. It starts to kill; they're already dead. Um,
Take
take
their
their
heads
heads
off.
off
Yeah,
to protect Andrea. And it really shows something about Michonne's character
I thought so.
and leadership.
Yep.
But anyway, I think that just that whole scene was pretty phenomenal. If you really take a look at, they're setting up that there's other groups out there trying to survive too. And of course, in this episode in particular, where you see the beginning of the new enemy.
Mhm. But we see, I was shocked when we saw that Merle is back, and he is working for the governor, which we'll talk about in a second. But he takes Andrea and Michonne, and we go to Woodbury, which I assume is going to be like the other location.
Right,
Um,
right.
so we'll have the prison, and then we'll have Woodbury, and we meet the governor. And what do you think of the governor?
Well, at first, he looks like a really nice guy, doesn't he? I
Hmm.
mean, he appears to be a nice guy. He appears to be this leader of this really neat town, right?
Hmm.
Safety. It looks like just a normal, peaceful, town. Woodbury.
Which
It kind of
which
reminds you of Mayberry from Andy Griffith's
mm,
show. It's all quiet and peaceful.
which after everything Andrea's been through, it's something she is drawn to.
She's drawn to the governor
Yeah,
too. She's
yeah,
drawn to his something about him,
hmm,
the way he holds power,
yeah.
and he appears to be a nice guy. I mean,
Hmm.
for the most part, and
Well,
in appearance. But of course, we discover that is not the case, and nor is this town really everything that it's cracked up to be.
no. And what do you think of Merle being back and working for the
Yeah, I
governor?
thought it was really great that we got to see Merle.
Hmm.
I think the reconnection between Merle and Daryl is inevitable, and it's something I've been looking forward to seeing what would happen if they got back together or connected again.
Yeah.
And Merle is trying to prove himself to the governor. He's trying to do the right things, and this whole Andrea Merle connection from the past is
Hmm.
intriguing to the governor.
Hmm.
And again, everything is about power and control for the governor uh, as what happens next.
Yes. So the one survivor is part of a refugee group of military,
Mm-hmm.
and the governor and his people they go and they take out that whole camp and kill them. And I was like, okay, they're bad guys. That was like the moment that like
Yeah,
solidified
and
that for me.
it was really wild because here you have these guys, these military guys out there just trying to survive, right?
Yeah.
And it was set up. The one survivor from the helicopter crash gave this information of location so that the soldiers would be able to come to Woodbury and have safety and
Hmm.
food and all that stuff.
But
And the
no, they just killed
governor
him.
governor killed him and took all their stuff,
Hmm.
all their military equipment, their guns, their jeeps, and all the stuff that will further make the governor a bigger threat to
Right.
Rick and gang.
Yeah. Um, but we have Michonne, and she does not trust the place at all. They're just she has like this spidey sense, if you want to call it that, that like she can tell when things are off. But
Yeah, it's like an
yeah,
intuition. She's
intuition, yeah,
very skeptical of the
which
governor.
understandably so from what we see. But they don't know what happened at when that they killed the camp with
No, but Michonne
soldiers.
has a feeling,
Hmm.
and
Michonne,
Andrea doesn't.
well, I mean, and Andrea, in her defense, like she just came off of being sick. She's looking for safety, and this place
Yeah,
provides that, in her
absolutely.
opinion.
You're right.
If I was her, I would, and if I had no idea about the governor, I would do the same thing. Um, so it seems like they're building this conflict, and of course, Andrea does take some interest in the governor, and I'm wondering, is that going to be like a romantic relationship, or is she going to work for him? Maybe a little of both. I'm looking forward to seeing that, and I'm assuming that they are going to be rivals to Rick's gang at some point.
I I do. I see that as the big conflict that's brewing,
Yeah,
whether it's a season three conflict or it's bigger than that and goes over to the next
yeah.
season. I don't know, but this is Governor's a big bad, and he is not the charismatic leader that everyone thinks
Hmm.
he is. He has a dark side, and it's dark,
Hmm.
really dark.
I mean, and different from Shane, and Shane was a villain, but the governor is another level, is what I'm seeing.
I think he's very calculated, evil, but he's smart.
Yeah, I think so. And Shane wasn't the smartest with everything
He was more emotional.
yeah,
Everything came out of his emotions,
yeah.
where the governor is cool, calm, collected.
But I think he's more evil, and he's gonna
Well, he's
be
willing
more
to
evil.
wipe out the
Yeah.
military gang, and I don't think
Yeah.
Shane would have done that.
Well, he took out walkers, but he never took out. Well, he took out Randall.
Randall, but I don't
But
think I think he would
It's
see the
still
possibility of resources and
it
partnership
yeah,
there.
it's still different. The what the governor did was arguably way worse.
For
And
sure.
yeah,
Tyranny is a word like, uh, he's not a governor; he's a dictator.
mhm, I can see that.
He a narcissist. Yeah, and the last scene of the episode presents how evil he is.
Yeah, we see that he's looking at a collection of walker heads, and it includes Michonne's pets or whatever, and then the survivor from the crash. They took off his head.
And so he's sitting
Um,
there staring at them as the episode closes. Do you think, how warped is that?
that's crazy.
That's where he gets his solace. Like he's there, kind of taking it all in. That's his accomplishment, so to speak. He's collecting heads.
Hmm.
So very narcissistic.
Hmm.
But he doesn't give off that at first. Gives off more of a cool, you know what I mean, a cool leader, calm leader. But man, he's not at all.
Nope. Um, I thought this was a good episode. I'm gonna give it a 9.
Yeah, I
Uh,
was thinking nine also. I really enjoyed the setup,
Great
potential
setup.
conflict. Yep.
I mean, with the governor, who seems like a very interesting villain, and Merle, and I'm really glad Merle's back in the mix, and to get that Merle and Daryl reunion at some point is gonna be great. And then whatever will happen with Andrea and Michonne, it's all gonna be very interesting. So I said earlier that like I was kind of mad about the episode, but now I'm like growing to appreciate it because it's a setup for I think something really cool, and I'm looking forward to it. So I like these 3 episodes a lot. They're very action packed, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. We have 13 episodes left in this season. It's the longest season yet, and it's if these were the first 3 episodes, I cannot imagine what the next 13 are going to be like. I think they're going to be crazy.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the season. New settings, new conflict,
Yeah.
new relationships, and nobody's really safe. It appears like the prison would be a safe place. It appears that this town of Woodbury would be a safe place, but there really is no safety in this new world,
Nope.
and there is no peace. There's no like calm, even though there seems to be, it really isn't, and that presents an important theme that we will explore as the
Hmm.
episodes go on about what is peace and what is safety, and because they all long for it, they all long for a place of safety,
Hmm.
and nobody's really finding it.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of all we have to say about these first 3 episodes. So comment down below your thoughts on these episodes, and we will be back next week to talk about episodes 4 through 6 of season 3.
See you,
So yes,
everybody.
thanks everyone for listening, and bye everyone.